Devdas' those white chicken kurtas. I'm really heartbroken and like weeping, and then I'm like, damn, I want that.
So I'll never forget the pin drop silence at the end of the film.
Really?
It doesn't happen in Hindi films
Yeah, it
a lot.
doesn't. So what is it about this damn character that we just can't get enough of? Hey everyone, I'm Anupama Chopra.
And I'm Rahul Desai.
And here we are for our last FC retake. I'm thrilled to be ending on the high note of Devdas 22 years on.
Good film to end with. First of all, last anything makes me a little emotional. So,
I know. I'm just trying to be really cool. Inside it's all...
yeah, I'll just pass it off as my emotions for Devdas or something. No? So,
correct. It's a good film to weep with.
It is. While I was watching it again, I didn't know if I was getting sentimental about the movie, about this being the last.
I know. Yeah. But did you like it?
I did enjoy watching it again. I loved it when I first watched it.
You had already loved it.
Again, I was like 15 years old.
But you loved it then?
Yeah, I loved it then. And for various reasons, not just the film itself. There's just too much significance in my life because it was my first year I'd moved to Bombay. And it was one of the first films I watched at a multiplex in Bombay.
Really?
Yeah. So, and I was looking forward to it because I had no friends, I had no idea. So I was expecting my dad to come back from office faster and take me to the movie because I was looking forward to it for the longest time. We went to Fame Ad Labs, which it was known as Fame Ad Labs then.
Yes.
And yeah, it was an amazing experience. I'll never forget the pin drop silence at the end of the film.
Really?
It doesn't happen in Hindi films
a
lot.
Doesn't. But that
you
that
could hear people breathe and
stunning.
heave.
Correct. Correct.
And
Correct.
yeah, it was. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
So I don't know if I reviewed it or not. I can't remember. But watching it again was just deeply emotional. For the first few minutes, the bigness of it threw me. And I don't know why. We've been watching that bigness for years.
Normalized now.
It's normalized now with Sanjay Bhansali. But just the kind of the pitch at which, the film begins, like the run through the corridor of Devdas aa raha hai. But then when it gets into the emotion, I was just amazed at how 22 years later, it still holds. It's so deeply tragic. The beauty of it is just mind-boggling at every level.
Yeah.
The three of them are so beautiful, and just every frame of it. And this was only Sanjay's third film.
Yeah.
Imagine that by film 3, he had already found the visual palette that he would go into again and again. But you know what I found, Rahul, which I have to share with you, is so I was at India Today back in the day, and we did a cover story on Devdas, and here are the stats on it. Okay. So budget crossed 50 crores, most expensive
then, yeah.
film at that time. 260 shooting shifts over 2.5 years. 2 crew members died in accidents on the shoot. The producer Bharat Shah spent 16 months in jail. And so there were times when Sanjay would just be waiting outside. At one point, Bharat Shah was taken to the hospital because he had so many medical complications, health complications. And Sanjay would just be sitting outside his hospital room waiting for him to pay the bills, because technicians would say, we are not going to shoot the daily wages, obviously, till these things their bills are paid. 6 sets were erected. The cheapest was 3 crores. The most expensive, which is Chandramukhi's Kotha, was 12. Okay, this is 22 years ago. Binod Pradhan, the great DOP, used 30 lakh watts of power supplied by 42 generators.
Yeah.
I mean, so the unit had to hire additional film space at the space at Film City just for the generators because there were too many. And Paro's beautiful sort of glass house, took 10 days and it has to build, and it has 1.22 lakh pieces of stained glass.
Yeah, I remember this. I do. The numbers are very vivid in my mind. A lot of the numbers.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And that was the legacy of that film while it was being made. For a lot of us, because obviously Shah Rukh and the cast and all, but I remember always reading about the making,
The troubles.
the problems. I had forgotten that he went to jail then, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it was a culmination of everything when it started to get released in multiplex and in theaters. I watched it twice in the first week, I remember, and it was I still, after all these years, I don't think I watched it for 15 years. For Retake, I think I rewatched it and I was worried that, it happens. Does it hold up? And also small screen, not a theater. Bhansali's vision, usual problems. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. And I got emotional at this very same things I got emotional as a 16-year-old.
Did you think at all that, which obviously didn't strike me then because Animal had not happened, but did it remind you of the OG daddy issues?
It did. I was just going to bring that up and I'm glad you did, because why not end with another chat about that?
Yeah.
No, it did, of course. All the terms we are so familiar with right now after all these years, toxic masculinity, man-child, bunch of things that Ranbir Kapoor roles became famous for down the line, that was the OG in many ways. And of course, it's not the first Devdas to have been made. And it's,
this was, I think, the 9th
for
Indian cinema, because of course it's been remade in Hindi, but it's also been remade in Telugu. Bengali was the first one.
That literary character itself was a manifestation of everything we find wrong today with a lot of our characters, right, in Hindi cinema. But I think the thing to be said about Devdas is he's a tragedy to begin with. It's not like the only thing that was romanticized is his tragedy. It's not like him as a man was ever romanticized. I think the two women in that were more in love with his love, not really with the man himself, because he had disappeared for 10 years to London and come back, and I don't think he was the same Devdas that Paro remembered, which is what the idea I got this while watching it again, the way Aishwarya
So you think she's in love with the idea of their relationship?
And especially of like what she presumed his love would be, because as children they were sort of almost childhood sweethearts, but best friends and all. But I think she realized very early that he's become a narcissistic, sort of very toxic man. That jealousy seen immediately. I love the way with the fly, with the bee. It's immediately established, and he, I don't like if anyone touches you. I think she realized very early, and for me, this exists in the Shah Rukh multiverse of that time, because Devdas felt like a reaction to a lot of the romantic films he was doing as a performance and as an actor, as a character also. Because I think the people in the film, especially Paro and Chandramukhi, probably expected him to be a more conventional Shah Rukh lover, because there are a lot of references, or like very invisible references to a lot of his films, because I think there's a lot of K3G in the way the mother expects him. There's a reunion supposed to happen, but it doesn't happen. So he keeps not doing the things he was known for in Shah Rukh's cinema.
He's subverting himself.
He has a spat with his father. He leaves the home, but without the woman. And then by the time he realizes that, it's too late. So he does all the things Shah Rukh characters have been doing, but even his introduction, we hear his voice first. We don't see his face at Paro's house. And that was a very Mohabbat introduction, because we see his hand first. We always, that first person perspective sort of entrance. So I like the fact that in the subconscious maybe of the filmmakers, of Shah Rukh himself, I think there was a lot of Shah Rukh's career till then in that film. And every scene we saw then was almost like, whatever I'm known for is not happening in this film. I'm going to change it in the last moment. And that's why this character is not worth rooting for. So,
what's interesting to me? So I went back to my book because it has a chapter. This is the king of Bollywood. It has a chapter on Devdas, and I've written that he actually, Shah Rukh didn't want to do Devdas. He wasn't really convinced. But Sanjay said to him that I will not make it if you don't do it. And the funny thing is, nobody actually thought of him as this character, because like you said, all he had been doing till then were the more, or not all, but the most successful things were, apart from Dar and Bazigar and that kind of murderous streak, was the great hero of love. And Sanjay said to him, I won't make it, but Sanjay said that only he could play Devdas because he felt that he has hurt in his eyes. And there's something about him that has never healed. And then, of course, the comparison is immediately Dilip Saab, because the great Devdas was made, or the great rendition of Devdas was Bimal Roy's Devdas, which is black and white. It's very austere. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's it's completely the opposite. And I wanted to read out this lovely quote so when I asked Shah Rukh about, how do you compete with Dilip Saab? So he said that he never saw Dilip Saab's Devdas, and he went into shooting with the serene awareness that he was not taking on one of India's greatest actors. And I quote, "If you're running with Carl Lewis, you're relaxed because you're not going to beat him. There is no competition."
Yeah, that's a nice quote. That is.
And that's so Shah Rukh.
No, it is. And yeah, I've seen that film, and I remember a lot of comparisons coming up when this Devdas released, and a lot of people weren't very happy.
They were not.
With
the purists were not happy
they were not
at
happy.
all, because first of all, like people like my mother, for whom Bimal Roy's Devdas was the gold standard, just the grandiosity of Sanjay's vision was like, but these people are in a village. Ye kahan par hai? Ye kahan ho raha? And then, of course, Paru and Chandramukhi never meet.
Yeah, and that they added.
And he not only had them meet and chat about Devdas, but also
great dance.
Also do one of the most stunning dance sequences ever, Dola Re Dola.
Yeah.
But on this viewing, Rahul, I really felt like that's what makes this so unique. It's like Anurag's Devdi was Anurag's version of this same narrative. And the reason this one is so singular is because it's Sanjay going, look at the train compartment in which Devdas takes his last drink, which of course he knows will take him to hell. And where is that train compartment? It's so beautiful.
I know. Obviously, the late Nitin Chandrakant Desai.
What sets?
While watching the film, all I could think of is what he accomplished with it. And also, not just that, it's just most of the film is indoors. Even the train scene, even though it's happening in a train, Bhansali wants you to be in space throughout and to show off what he's made. And it's fine, like that kind of indulgent artificiality that we have come to not like over the years. I think that was the purest form then. And I think it worked for these characters, for this world he created, because that's an adaptation in the truest sense. You're not trying to ape or trying to sort of be authentic, because there is no authenticity.
Right.
It's it's a literary adaptation of sorts. So it's what Ridley Scott does with a lot of his movies. He doesn't care for the accents. He doesn't care for the period. He's like, just enjoy the movie and forget about these details.
Correct.
Of course, he throws in a few cuss words there. But that's also my attitude whenever I watch a Bhansali production, whether now or whether then. I just go with what he has created, and if in that world it doesn't work for me, yes, then I have a problem with it. Like his recent films may have not worked for me on that scale, but Devdas for me was Nitin Desai all the way in terms of what he created, because every space was an extension of the character, whether it be the glass house, whether it be Devdas and him never really belonging in that house of his family, and everyone trying to sort of undercut him, whether it be Chandramukhi's place. And you could see it was a set. They wanted you to see it was a set.
There's no attempt
बाजू में दिख रहा है कि फिल्म सिटी का माउंटेन, मतलब there's nothing around. There's no city. There's nothing. And you for as long as whatever is in the frame, that's all they care about. And I really like that, because I don't think, obviously now we are sort of conditioned to criticize that if we see artificiality. But if you want to do it that way, and the way he, like that absurd shot where in one of the first scenes where Chandramukhi is introduced, she has wet hair, the hair hits the mirror,
and the mirror shatters,
and the Shah Rukh's reflection in that. I was like, this is so shameless, I love it. Like, it's so, like, right now we would, if we saw it in a movie today, trust me, we're like, kya ho raha hai?
But now, do you not think also what this kind of dramatic visual palette also enhances the drama of the emotions, right? So you feel that pain because it's such pain, but there's such beauty, right side by side. And there's no frame in which you don't have beauty. It's not ki jab dukhi hai log, suddenly the colors wash out or stuff. There's still, that last run is, the
That is
Bhansali
something.
signature
Yeah.
shot of the top shot of the pallu,
Yeah.
and he's dying, and they're shutting the gates of the Haveli.
Yeah.
All of it is just basically taking you to that absolute crescendo of emotion, which is what he's hoping to do.
It's very much a product of that era, right? Because we hadn't seen something like that then, except for his own Dil De Chuke. But this was another level again.
This was another level.
It's everything was choreographed, whether it be like that B sequence, or whether it be her pallu, as you said, the fire, the diya she takes, and all the songs, obviously. So even the actions were all part of the music. They were all part of the songs, and maybe it wouldn't work today, but I think it's a great representation of what we talk about Bhansali now, because he's an aesthetic when we mention him. That was the birth of it for me. Like, even though Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam was more of a film, it was more of a story, you could see everything. This was absolute, like, it was just aesthetic, and it worked wonders, as you said, with the emotions, with the performances. They were all very much part of that little world that they created, and I don't think they were shying away from that at all.
I think they also found, Rahul, Shah Rukh, Madhuri, Aishwarya all found the right pitch for those lines.
Yeah.
I mean, those dialogue, there's nothing, again, there's no realism about any of that. Just some of the lines are so beautiful. And of course, Chunni Lal, Jackie Shroff, da se dukh and da se ye or da se wo, but they found a way to not make that slightly silly. It could veer into silly very quickly.
It could.
But they all sort of kept that emotion, that kind of gravitas, and I think just the pain.
Yeah.
They were all operating on high pain.
Yeah. Pain is a good language, and you could see that perfectionism that Bhansali is associated with. There was pain in the filmmaking also, because it took so much. The effort was visible. I know we keep saying, as as critics and all, effort shouldn't be visible. It should be effortless. The editing, this, that. Then it's a good film. But here, sometimes when the effort is visible, it adds to the pain of the characters, because you can sense how much time it has taken to stage a shot.
Correct.
Every single shot, and I felt bad for all the technicians around. Whenever I was seeing every song, every scene, even like the smallest of scenes, moments, fleeting moments, I would feel like it took so long. And it feels like that longing was translated into the performances, because you could see the actors also like grow with the film almost. And for me, it is still one of my favorite Shah Rukh performances. I know it's over the top, and I know it's, but it just hits. And the drunkenness that he does, and I'm saying this as someone who understands, because like I come from a family where I've seen alcoholism. I don't want it to be authentic in the movies all the time. It's overrated. But I think the way Shah Rukh sort of translated it into that dramatic pitch, I don't think I've seen it like happen in Bollywood for a long time, because that's where it, after a while you forget. I think Devdas himself forgot why he was drinking.
Right.
And that is a great thing to do as a performance.
Yeah.
Because you forgot, why did he start drinking? What? It was a male ego. It was a tragedy of male ego. He had a problem with his dad. He had daddy issues, and he just, he forgot about Paro in that moment. And he left the house. He didn't leave saying that, like K3G, saying I'm taking her and leaving. I'm making a statement. No, I'm leaving because I hate you.
Yeah.
So, and that's all. That's why he starts drinking. It's a statement. So I felt like by the end in that train, which is so haunting, I don't remember why he was drinking, and neither did he. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. No, it is definitely one of his best.
Yeah.
I think he and again, given that he was always seen as such a stylized actor, somebody who has just the 5 mannerisms that he does, and for him, and those scenes, especially in the second half, when he is when he conducts his own funeral, or that entire sequence with I object, I was just like heartbroken.
Also, the reverbs in that scene, like in that I object and him like going on a absolute meltdown, the way Bhansali handles the sound there, and Motwane is one of the sound, Motwane is one of the sound designers. Like, that's a good touch, because they just know when to amplify it or when to have that reverb, when to have the echo, which can
the caning sound
come across as the caning sound,
Yeah.
and it became the soundtrack, like the which is great. And even towards the end, when we see Paro in a new house with a husband and sort of caged like a bird there, and then realizing that it might be Devdas outside, that entire sequence, I felt like she looked possessed. In that, it didn't, and again, I think she was mourning the fact that she loved a very imperfect, flawed man, and there's no way out of it, and she'll never be with him. And I liked that the women remained strong despite that. Like Chandramukhi was probably used to a certain kind of toxic man because of the work she did, and I felt like when she saw someone like Devdas, she wanted his love, not him as such. And in the end, when I saw Aishwarya Rai being like possessed and just like sort of going to the door like a ghost, it felt like she was, both human and ghost. It was amazing. And that's again Bhansali. Every moment is so painstakingly made. I don't think we can see that again, and I don't think I'd want to also.
Yeah, no, you can't.
You can't. I don't think it's done, and in the moment, it was lovely.
It was, and even that moment where Chandramukhi slaps the Milind Gunaji character, was just so powerful, and she says, "Tamasha ab khatam hua." I was like, yes. So just the high of these characters and the beauty that he created, and of course we have to talk about the songs.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm still humming Silsila Hai, even though it's been 2 days since I watched it. Randomly, it's just going on in that was my favorite song for the longest time in the film. The Aishwarya sort of intro song. But every song, the way it's choreographed, even the small ones, I don't know which one, but I think the one where Devdas and Chandramukhi are sort of just teasing each other.
Yes.
They read each other's hands.
Yeah.
And that's when they read each other's hands, that's exactly what comes true towards the end. When they joke about it, saying that you'll marry an older man, you'll marry a rich man.
Correct.
You won't marry at all. You have nothing in you. And that's I love these little things that they put in. And the songs, of course, are haunting.
Of course, this film was also the introduction of Shreya Ghoshal.
Yeah.
Only 16.
Yeah. I don't know what hit me when I started hearing Silsila. I mean, that voice, first of all, background singing was obviously a very big deal. I don't think it's the same anymore as compared. They used to be stars.
Yeah.
Like, of course, since Lata Mangeshkar era, but your Asha Bhosles and your Udit Narayan, they used to be stars. So when I heard this voice first, I was like, I've not heard this in the 90s. This has to be someone new. And of course, it took me a while to figure out that it was someone very new and very young.
Imagine, but look at his eye for talent, or ear for talent in this case.
He is a musician of he's
and he did ultimately become his own composer. Yeah.
And it's just, I could totally get it. And her voice throughout that film was a character also.
Absolutely.
It had to be, because they could not afford to sound like something we had heard before.
Yeah.
All three.
In the piece I wrote for India Today, I report on how Ismail Darbar created this incredible soundtrack, but he says that they fought like cats and dogs.
I sense that.
And apparently so badly, and he would walk out, okay? Yeah. Ismail would just walk out, and then Sanjay would call him back. And apparently after, I think it was the 7th walkout, that Sanjay didn't call him back. And so Monty has done the BGM.
Yeah.
Right? But then, at the time of the story, he says, but we're friends now.
Yeah, no, you could sense that. And it's a great mess to have come out of it, and it's if you could call it that, because it just sounds ravishing.
It is.
In every way. You can still hear ravishing. It and get nostalgic, saying, "Aajkal aisa nahi banata."
It's eternal.
It is.
There's no song that feels like it was of that time. It's also because the base is classical Hindustani.
Yeah, of course. And very few of us were educated in it. Yeah. And continue to not be, but that music for me was very accessible, even in a very Bollywood way, because I'll never forget the Devdas theme in the end, the one where she's running towards the end. I used to hear it on my cassette on loop again and again. It was a doomed song. It was one of the only films to end with such a loud tragedy. No film had the guts to do that, and if you make a film of this scale, to end it with that scene and that music, it's I don't think I've ever heard that silence in a theater.
That's why.
After that.
Because you went from Shah Rukh's face to a film by Sanjay Leela Bhansali.
Yeah.
And
I was.
You're in shock.
Even when I watched it again, my eyes were just like.
Me too.
It was.
Okay, I first cried. I have to tell you this. She's getting married. I was till then I was like, it was all building up, and then there's that moment where she puts her hand out of her dolly.
Yes. Correct.
Holding that damn diya.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh my god, just weeping.
No, totally. Simple gestures like that, and the way he even frames all of those shots, wanting us to notice it, and just like you want to be manipulated like that.
He wants you to see it.
He wants
so the altaka falls, then her feet, then there's red footsteps all the way.
That's amazing. That is, I don't know how someone.
It's haunting. It's just haunting.
It is.
And the costumes even. Now look at what Neeta Lola did, what Abu Sandeep did. I mean, suddenly Devdas is those white chicken kurtas, and I'm like. So I'm really heartbroken and like weeping, and then I'm like, damn, I want that.
It's complicated.
It's very complicated.
I wanted to know what happened 10 years in London. That would make a great backstory, because I'm like, what happened to him there that he came back like this?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, maybe in London again, multiverse is happening. Some DDLJ stuff is happening there. He's at Trafalgar. Like same thing. Like the Shah Rukh multiverse is so entrenched into every film he did in that era. Even the filmmakers don't realize how subconsciously inspired they were from that. Like even that song where Aishwarya is getting married and Shah Rukh is sort of giving her away in a way. So much of Ae Dil Hai Mushkil in that, like the Ranbir at the marriage, and I'm like, I love this multiverse.
Yeah. Tell me, and this is something I've always thought about. So Sarat Chandra Chattopadhyay writes this novel in 1901. Apparently so embarrassed and ashamed of it that does not publish it till 1917, because he himself thought that it was just fueled by his own drinking, sprees. And yet, this novel, which he published Parinita, he published other novels of his before this, but this is the one that has endured for
It has,
100 years, right? So what is it about this damn character that we just can't get enough of?
Yeah, I think it continues to sort of echo in different ways in Hindi cinema. Because everything that's being, that is divisive now about how men are in modern films, it all stems from that. It stems, and not in a bad way or anything. I think now these same men can get away with the actions in a lot of the films we see, like Animal and like a bunch of them. But I think the fact that he is a most unlikable sort of character and you still feel terribly sorry for him, but he suffers the consequences of his actions throughout. And he has nobody else to blame. He has nobody else. And I think for a lot of, I don't know how it is, but I think a lot of artists are very self-flagellating in that sense. And a lot of people don't like to admit it, but I think tragedy is
attractive.
It's attractive, and it's, if romanticized in the right way, I think it makes sense, because here is a man who is in every way sort of the most self-destructive person ever, and not good to be with. And two women don't have answers, and none of them end up with him either. So I think it was very weirdly progressive, despite all the things that he thought happened,
including him hitting her,
including that. The fact is that she chose to marry someone else. Her ego was stronger, her womanhood was stronger, because she was like, the timing just didn't match. By the time he came back for her, she had gone, and she was like, I'm done. I don't think this is ever going to happen. She could have left at any point, but I think her running towards the gate in the end wasn't her sort of wanting to be with him in any way. It's just wanting to fulfill that promise that he would come before dying. So,
would you want to know him in person?
I've probably known people like him all my life, and we continue to know them on screen. But yeah, it's very fascinating to know how complex and how dark people can be. And I think great art comes from that. Own responses.
Our own responses, because one side of you is like, this is rubbish. Why do these two amazing, gorgeous, strong women care about him this much? But we do too.
Our shame is manifested through cinema like that, and I think, and we never used to see Shah Rukh smoking a lot in his films, but in this, straight away off the first scene he was, and drinking, of course we know how that went. So sometimes when a movie is so hyped because of its budget and because of its aesthetic, all it comes to be known as is because a musical. But I think I didn't look at it as a musical for the longest time. I just couldn't distinguish between the songs and the action most of the time.
That's right.
Even the dramatic sequences felt like songs to me.
So it was just, and he choreographed it to perfection.
Yeah.
You know, that whole Mardala, the sequence leading up to it, the bet that she has, that the candle will melt, and if then she's waiting for Devdas, and of course she's almost lost, and then you see his figure, and then she starts singing. It's just staggering, staggering.
It is. And I would pay anything to just hear Bhansali say cut after every wrong take and be like, no, I wanted 1 millimeter to that side, and I could just keep imagining that. You're not, the blur is not right, you know, I can't see Shah Rukh enough in the background. It must be crazy, and I think that's one of the examples of like how it translates, all that torture translates into something.
And then of course the film goes to Cannes.
And
Bollywood at Cannes. This
for
was
me,
the
my first memory of it.
It was what put Cannes on the map for most Indians.
Right.
You know, because what had gone before was, of course, very, very great, good cinema, but very much independent art house cinema. And here
but this was Bollywood.
This was Bollywood.
This was
the three of them looking dazzling on that red carpet with a horse-drawn carriage. You know, like it couldn't get better. And I have to tell you, and I should find it again. They go to Cannes and so of course some critics were not impressed. So Derek Malcolm in The Guardian said it's a pretty silly 3 hours worth of romance, song and dance, and utterly tasteless if luxuriant production design. So obviously you had your naysayers, but in Time magazine, Richard Collis was absolutely bowled over. He called Sanjay Bhansali a young master of the medium, and he put it number 4 on his top 10 movie list of the year.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Okay, above Minority Report and Lord of the Ring, The Two Towers.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. And he said, Collis wrote, Devdas is a visual ravishment with huge sets, fabulous frocks, and beautiful people to fill them. It has the grandeur that old Hollywood moguls would have loved.
No, absolutely. And the ones who went for it fell hook like a line and sinker. Because I remember because Moulin Rouge came out like a year before that. And Hollywood went gaga about it. The world went crazy about that film. And when I watched it, I was like, I see this every day. Like, this is their musical and this is our every Friday.
Correct.
And Devdas just took it to another pitch. And I'm a big fan of Moulin Rouge. I love that film. I love how Baz Luhrmann is as crazy as Sanjay Leela Bhansali.
I was just going to say. So Baz Luhrmann and Bhansali are from that same DNA. You know?
Absolutely unapologetic. It's just who they are. Like a recent film that I watched, which got very unfairly panned and reminded me of Bhansali's vision and Baz Luhrmann, is Babylon.
I love.
It is absolutely bonkers.
Yes.
It is bonkers. Old Hollywood.
From the first sequence.
And that's a filmmaker. That is a film. And this is what Bhansali did then. This is what Luhrmann did then. And it was just a year gap between each other. And those same critics that were going crazy about Moulin Rouge were having a slightly difficult time digesting Devdas, which was a cultural sort of study on its own, which for me was fascinating because I used to read a lot of these critics. And I'm like, these were only names for me, but I was very fascinated by the reactions to Devdas.
But you know what it did? It did set up the kind of, it laid the foundation. Aishwarya was invited to be on the main jury the next year. And after that, each year has had a bigger and bigger Indian cinema presence. So, you know, Devdas was significant in so many ways.
Aishwarya became royalty at Cannes
after
that. And I'll never forget how the visuals from Cannes of her, and even in the film, you know, even while I was watching the film, Tal was one of my favorite films of Aishwarya before that, and I was like, so much in common. Her character has so much, except this is another pitch. But she's more or less doing the same thing. Her family is humiliated. It's a sort of caste distinction thing. It's the same scenes, but in a different director's sort of perspective. And I love her performance in Tal, and this only solidified that sort of, and she was ethereal, of course.
She
Like,
is.
she's
My God.
those 5 or 6 years. I don't think I've seen the big screen sort of dazzle like that when she was on. And she was like, for me, she was never my most favorite actress. I always had the Madhuri Dixits and the Kajols, and also to see Madhuri and her in the same frame dancing off, and I know the Dil To Pagal Hai dance off was spoken of before this. I think this is just as significant.
Dola Re Dola
It's
is
and that doesn't exist in the book, and that's one way to basically tell your sort of detractors saying this is my film.
Yeah, absolutely. Rahul, it has been a joy
It
to
has.
dissect films with you, and we shall continue to do it.
Yeah, same here. I know I'm notoriously camera shy, but if I have to ever come on camera again, I hope it's with you.
Absolutely, we will make it happen.
Yes, of course.
Thank you for watching, guys.